says I'm going live, but whether I actually am live or not is another computer. Okay, so this is a super late night live stream, and not expecting too many people. I mean, who's crazy enough to be listening to someone blab about the ISTJ at this late hour? So I figured I'm going to talk about ISTJ functions in a live stream, because that way it's easier to collect my thoughts, and maybe people have live questions. If not, maybe I'll do another video later if there's enough demand. So first off, let's start by talking about the bottom function, because I'm an optimist. I want to talk about where I'm strong later, and then talk about where I'm weak first. So extroverted intuition. A lot of people say my extroverted intuition isn't terrible, but that's because they're compared to the way, say, an ESTJ or an ENFP were to use it. For me, extroverted intuition manifests as kind of a fear of the unknown. And even if I do occasionally talk randomly or crack a joke out of nowhere, it's typically somewhat grounded in familiarity. Like I might make a joke based off of a favorite video game I played because I know the game, or I might have an idea based on something that I liked in the past, and I feel safe adapting it. Whereas something that's totally new and revolutionary, like say a new genre of video games or a new type of TV show, I'd be very hesitant, if not totally just denouncing it on the spot. Like if someone were to say, "Hey, Paul, you want to play a first-person shooter match with me?" I'd be like, "I don't play first-person shooters. I'm terrible at them. Not even going to try because it'll probably be an epic waste of my time." Or if a person says, "Hey, Paul, you want to go on a trip with me to Florida?" I'll say, "No. Florida's too hot, too far away, never flown before, don't really like car rides that much, so just not going to do it." I mean, if you really want to go to the beach somewhere, there are other options besides Florida. Just go to the local swimming pool. I mean, it's cheap enough, not going to kill anyone's budget. But when I do use extroverted intuition to a certain extent, it can often lead to making very creative decisions in my novels. It can also lead to observing a creative way to proceed through a problem when everyone else is sort of stuck in their ways. It can also lead to me saying, "Now, are you sure we should be having turkey for Thanksgiving? I mean, it seems like it's a lot of effort. Why don't we just use pizza instead? I mean, no one typically eats pizza for Thanksgiving, but it would be more efficient and tastes good." I know I'm like leaning on the more dominant functions here, but if I'm going to use extroverted intuition, it's usually heavily supported. Like, it's basically the wobbly leg that, okay, I got it out of the Jenga tower type of function, where it's got to be ridiculously supported or else. Now, introverted feeling. Basically, it's a deliberate suppression of emotions to the outside world, but still keeping in mind that they exist, but that they should be used prudently. So because it's my tertiary function, I'm obviously not going to try to go out of the way to show people what I'm feeling or like face. I will oftentimes hide from the world if something's going on. Like, for example, when I first started dating, I actually didn't make it public knowledge until just a few hours after the fact. And even then, I think I only told 2 people that I was even interested in dating anyone, because most people were like, "Oh, Paul, I thought you said you were going to stay single forever." Well, so did I. And then God happened. But I didn't feel like making this big, mushy, touchy-feely thing, so I kept it under low profile. A friend of mine recently decided to screw me over That's probably exaggerating a little bit. More like doesn't want to talk to me ever again for some bizarre reason that she claims is godly. And my introverted feeling is going to want to hide her identity as much as possible, not really make a big deal out of it in person, or if it does get to be overwhelming, kind of just like go out by myself and deal with it on my own without getting everyone else involved. It also means that I'm going to try my best not to be overly rude. Like, I know some ESTJs and ENTJs might just say things without even trying to give a care about what people think. Whereas with me, I'll think, okay, what will be the most prudential way of presenting this? But more often than not, I'll think, you know what? Feelings are so subjective anyway. And maybe the person needs to hear this, whether they like it or not. So sometimes my emotions might be repressed, and because it's introverted feeling, not extroverted feeling, I'm not going to be vacuuming people's emotions. Although with ENFJs, it's even the most inferior of feelers can tell that something is wrong with them because they're like, when they're upset. And like when they're miserable, they just start moping and getting this horrible down face. Whereas when I'm miserable, I'm more just going to be like, that, where it's far less obvious. As far as extroverted thinking, it basically manifests itself for me as this desire to outwardly express what I've taken in and sort of relay it to the world so that it doesn't just stay inside my head. Because people can't read minds. So why would I want to keep all of this information and not want to share it with people? If I've got it, sometimes it has to be enforced because people are stubborn. And people might think, well, Paul, there's your truth and then there's my truth. And the extroverted thinking is saying, no. This is objective reality. If you scrape your bare knee against the sidewalk, it's going to bleed, or at the very least, your skin's going to peel. There's no way of getting around that. You're not a Superman or a Superwoman. So the extroverted thinking is sort of a reality check of saying, guys, snap out of it and get back into reality because you're being unrealistic and unfair. Now, because it's secondary and not dominant like the ESTJs and the ENTJs, there's going to be a part of me that knows when to hold back and say, maybe I shouldn't be as rude or enforcing, or maybe I should give people a warning first, because some people might not think that something is as obvious as I do. Maybe common sense doesn't come as easily to some people as it does to me. So maybe I should warn the person and say, okay, well, you do know that that's against the laws of common courtesy, right? As opposed to an ESTJ where they'd just be like, you're so rude, apologize this instant. I mean, I admit I do that sometimes, but not as readily as they do. They're also willing to like step in and be confrontational, whereas I might think about it first and then be confrontational. Now for the kicker, introverted sensing, which is basically tons upon tons of memories, facts, data, information just globbing all through my mind nearly every second of my existence. Nearly every choice I make is based on this. It's like I'm constantly watching a movie of like, ooh, July 4th, 2010, July 10th, 2011, September 23rd, 2012. It's like these awesome facts will be presenting themselves. Hello, person that just joined. These awesome facts are presenting themselves, and it's like, even if I try, oh, ISFP, good to know. So you've got extroverted sensing then. I'd love to hear about that if you have the time to tell me. So as I was saying about introverted sensing, it's basically just we notice something and then it's very hard to get that out of our internal memory banks. So you're telling me that you're a zombie watching this? Dang, didn't know I was playing Resident Evil. Thought I hated that game. I did play Project X Zone 2 and got to control some Resident Evil heroes. Nice to know that they had the same powers as Phoenix Wright and Maya Fey. Yeah, I knew that. I was just messing with you. Dominant introverted sensing. We love to take things 100% literally. So if someone says, I wish I had $1 million, I'd say, isn't that kind of greedy? When they're really saying more like, I wish I had enough to pay my bills. Creepy details. Oh, I see. So, if I'm understanding ISFP correctly, you're the introverts that it's most likely to love parties. Would that be true for you? ISFPs, they're actually a very fascinating type of mine. While I'm waiting for him to be typing, I've figured if anyone else is going to watch this. I love food too. I'll go on record saying, ooh, pineapple juice, and just drink it. But because the introverted sensing and the extroverted thinking in me is thinking realistically, I'll say, well, maybe I should limit the amount of pineapple juice I'm drinking because of the possibility of acid reflux, the possibility of having to go to the bathroom too much, not being able to sleep properly, stuff like that. There will be that limit. Whereas pretty sure ISFPs don't necessarily have that objective, logical feedback. Although I heard that you guys are ridiculously practical, so that's amazing. One thing I love about ISFPs is that they're very grounded in morality. Like, they have this sense of what's right and what's wrong, even if sometimes it's by their own subjective reasoning and not necessarily objective, but still the fact that they know what they believe and follow through with it as their primary decision making is very admirable. Yeah, I don't really like parties either. I prefer to, like, if I do go to a party, maybe stick around 1 or 2 people and talk about something I like. But I like being the center of attention. If I am, it's typically very draining, and then I show my tiredness later. And also, I tend to, like, deflect praise, and maybe that's why I don't like center of attention, because I'm always wondering how accurate are the comments. Are they based on legitimate fact, or is it just trying to make me feel better? Because one person could try to make me feel better, but then they won't. They, like, epically fail at it. By the way, I'm going to type something random, because the last time I had a guy on this, he typed too much, and Facebook said, hey, shut up and let the other person talk. So, permission to talk further to prevent that from happening again. There you go. Yeah, because the previous person that was on the live stream was an ESFP, and he had so much to say, but he couldn't say all of it because he showed me a message on his phone where it said, you are talking too much. And I hate talking too much myself, so I love what sounds like inferior extroverted intuition. The fact that I'm not usually good at detecting praise and whether it's legitimate or not. Yeah, I think I'd probably have to agree. The inferior intuition in me whenever I'm scared of something is like, I don't want this to happen again. It's happened before, and I'm going to learn from my mistakes. But then when I'm, like, in the grip, which for those of you that don't know, it's like when a type is so under stress that the functions they repress come into the open. For me, I'm, like, super stressed out. I'm going to be thinking of every possible horrible thing that could possibly go wrong. And a lot of times it's super unrealistic. And then I'll, like, blame myself for it. So I might say, oh, my best friend that I have known for over 20 years is probably going to turn on me. And it'll be my fault because I said something rude to him on July 2nd of 2015 that he's going to remember all these years later. He's an INTJ. He has a terrible memory. That's what I would say. I'm in my right mind. But that's an example of what I would say when I'm not in my right mind. So ISFPs, their inferior function is extroverted thinking, which is my secondary function. So how would you say inferior thinking manifests itself? Or would you say it's mostly similar to when you thought you were INFP? And in case anyone's wondering why the heck I don't just get a new webcam, it's because I'm kind of a stickler for saving money. Probably the dominant sensing. Noticing stupidity, did you mean to say? Yeah, me too. When I go into my job and I see people having the scullery room. Does everyone know what a scullery room is? Well, for those of you that haven't ever washed dishes for a living, a scullery room is basically like a professional sink. You wash the dishes there, you sanitize them there, spray them off, that kind of thing. But yeah, like if I come into the scullery room and the students just overload the counter and they don't bother spraying off the dishes, so you got this brown ooze going into the sink. I'm like, guys, you're trying to get a professional cooking degree. You should at least keep the place nice and tidy. We can't be bilocating when we're asked to help set up the restaurant and you're over here making our workspace a mess. Ugh. Horror stories, I'll tell you, that kitchen. So you basically turn into an ENTJ, my least favorite type, when you're angry. Ah, I see now. Yeah, if there's one thing that dominant judgers always bother me with, it's when they don't know how to control their temper. I think with the dominant perceivers, which are the IJs and the EPs, we're usually a little bit better at maintaining a certain degree of calmness. SE Rage. Can't say I've ever heard about that. Unless if it's one of those, oh, guess what? I am going to like super indulge in pornography or food or sex or something to like appease your needs. I heard INFJs do that, but I never heard ISFPs being particularly notorious for that. So if you could explain that, that'd be really great. Interesting. That could also have to do with having introverted feeling as your dominant function. So as a result, your personal feelings are being invaded. So you feel like your senses are invaded. And so that's why you take it out. Whereas an INFP, I'm not really sure how to describe it, but I've often called my INFP Miss ESTJ because when she gets mad, she starts like bossing people around like crazy and then noticing every little detail that's out of place. And all of a sudden, it's this super huge priority to be like, why didn't you clean up the bathroom? Why didn't you fix the toilet paper? Why is the men's bathroom so terrible? Girl, you're a woman. Chill out. That should be the man's job to focus on that. Yeah. I've maybe broken stuff in anger, like maybe twice in my life. Not really the type. When I get angry, I tend to turn inward. I hardly ever bellow at the top of my lungs when I'm angry. It typically takes a lot, like years of repressed emotions before I get to that point. But you guys get to that easily? That's definitely very interesting. Before I was on my medication, I was sort of like that. But even then, I still was very much an inwardly emotional person. So ISFPs, you have tertiary introverted intuition. So therefore, if my understanding is correct, it means that... Does it now? I will have to check that out. Although I'm not surprised that you said that, because like I said, dominant judgers, they tend to like act first, think later, which is the opposite of the dominant perceivers, which are all about, should I be getting angry at this moment? Is this the right opportune moment for me to unleash my anger? Whereas the dominant judgers, they tend to just be like, I'm angry, there's nothing to think about. But then like after they get angry, they're like, shoot, maybe I shouldn't have said that. Whereas we, on the other hand, might have said, shoot, we overthought that a little bit too much. We should have just gone with our gut. Which I hate going by my gut. Then I usually regret it because people will be like, but Paul, your gut feelings are usually correct. Why do you always say that they're stupid? Yes, I was, particularly the ISFP's introverted intuition. You guys, if my understanding is correct, it's like your way of being able to explain something to someone that's having trouble interpreting a hidden meaning, but you don't personally go by hidden meanings very much at all. You're more so just, you have a somewhat vague concept of the future, but you don't let it completely take over your life. I could be wrong, but that's what I heard from my other ISFP friend. Good question to raise in a typology group is, does the tertiary function change between genders? Because I know like ENFJ males and ENFJ females are very different from each other. So it'd be interesting to see like if it's just their dominant function or does their tertiary function change between men and women too. Anyway, I've been blabbing enough. Your turn to talk about your intuition and how it plays out. Probably better than mine, whatever it is. While you're typing, my perspective of introverted and interesting. Well, my understanding of introverted intuition, seeing as that's my bottom function, like the 8th one on the flow chart. Man, now I'm thinking of Virtue's Esther Ward too much. It's basically just trying to find a way to make things as confusing as possible when there's no need for it. Like, from my experience, people with introverted intuition always try to find a different angle of seeing things. But the thing is, it usually doesn't work for everyone. It's like they think it works because of their thought process. And I'm thinking, wait, I don't understand a thing of what you're saying. But because introverted intuition is this pushing forward thing, they're not noticing discomfort. They're just pushing forward and be like, I have this cool idea, I have this cool idea, I have this cool idea. And I basically have to yell, shut up, before they realize that I'm like way overwhelmed by all of that. Well, that's an interesting phrase. It would be, well, there are physical constants throughout the universe. And then even if there aren't, God has his reasons for everything. And even if something goes like sinfully, God still allows it to happen if greater good can come out of it. So basically, it's either the laws of the universe or the laws of God. And because God created the universe, therefore he knows every possibility that could happen. And he knows every possible outcome, but he gives us free will. So I guess you could say we can choose to make everything happen for a reason. You'll need to clarify that a bit more, because I'm neither an intuitive nor a feeler. Interesting. I never thought of that before. It could have to do with the dominant introverted feeling and the tertiary intuition that might make you second guess your beliefs, if I'm understanding the loops correctly. INFJ, though. The mysterious type, which is weird because if I had to pick a type that is easiest for me to understand, it would have to be the ISFP. Like, I have hardly ever had a miscommunication moment with an ISFP. When I talk to one of those guys, they're always very good at explaining themselves. And whenever they say, "Does that make sense?" I usually say, "Yeah, that makes total sense." Don't we all second guess ourselves? Part of being an introvert. Now that I think about confident introverts, like the rest of us are sort of more like, well, we could have done better on that. Same here. I mean, my communication style may not be objectively good for everyone, and even though I try, obviously I'm going to fail because I'm human. I can't read people's minds. I don't know what makes sense to one person that doesn't to another. So I try my best from all my studies and years of living, and if I'm right, I'm right. If I'm wrong, hopefully someone will illuminate me. So with that said, do you have any further questions? Because I know you said you were tired earlier. Don't want to drag this on too much if you don't have the energy. Same here. Like, it's hard for me to go to sleep without looking at YouTube first. Probably because the way I go to sleep is by overthinking some kind of sensory thing, and then my brain just gets tired after a while and goes to sleep. Because otherwise, if I don't have enough to think about, then can't go to sleep because my brain hasn't exhausted itself. Excuse me. I guess you could say, like, once I'm recharged, I need to, like, do something about it with the energy that I have. I can't just be constantly in the state of alone time, or I'll feel like, when you charge a cell phone fully, you eventually have to take it out of its charger, or it defeats the purpose of having a cell phone. In the same way, like, okay, my mind needs to have itself be drained so that I can go to bed. Maybe it's just because I'm the outgoing variety of introvert. I can definitely talk a lot when I'm around one or two people, but I do typically try to avoid crowds. I prefer analyzing over enforcing, and sometimes I'll push myself a little bit, but I typically have a defined limit of, like, okay, so Wednesdays are when I work until 3 o'clock. Yeah, same here. Wednesdays I work until 3. Then I need my time alone. I don't even want to talk to a girlfriend or an out-of-stater. And if I do, I'll probably be crabby. Probably the J in me that just, like, has this scheduled tiredness. Yeah, I know, it's really ridiculous. I'm hoping I can get out of that, but it works. I mean, it's a familiar way that I've been operating for the past 8 years now. It's just when I get home from work, I do what I call crash. I sleep for a bit, then I go out and I have fun at night, or I, have fun on the internet. But I definitely would not consider myself the type of person that once I'm off of work, I'll be like, I need people to recharge me. No, I don't. Now, if I were, say, playing the latest Smash Brothers all day and wanted to talk about how awesome it was, then I would say, I need someone so that I can unleash all of this sensing that's in my head. Then there's the extroverted thinking taking over. I do not work alone because when you're washing dishes, working alone means that you have less hands, and you really need, and I'm speaking totally literally here, because, you don't really wash dishes with any other part of your body besides your hands. So you need more hands to be able to have one person spraying, one person washing, one person putting away. I'd like to work alone, but usually we have too many dishes to do that. Although I'm usually somewhat on the secretive side as far as, like, when I'm writing a novel or a project. Mostly because people don't tell me what to make a project on. So when I do make a video, it's usually just what I feel like talking about, as opposed to what people suggest. Which, by the way, if you have any suggestions that I can realistically do, I would love to hear them. I mean, I made a video a long time ago, probably before you subscribed. It was YouTube, not MeTube, where I said, hey, guys, it may be my channel, but you guys are the ones watching it. So if you want me to film something, say it, as long as it's doable. Like, if you say, hey, Paul, can you live stream Super Mario 64? Well, I don't have a Nintendo 64 capture card, which would be one of those practical reasons. I could live stream the Wii U Virtual Console version of it, but then Nintendo's copyright policies would get in the way. So oh, that's a pretty good answer as far as content. When you say explain this, if you're referring to my YouTube, not MeTube, it's, if I'm going to post something to the public, obviously I'm going to want at least one person to view it. So if I make a video that only I am going to want to watch, well, I might as well just talk to a mirror, but I'm not talking to a mirror. I'm talking to a webcam. So I want it to be broadcast to the world so that they can see it. You know, I have thoughts. I have objective truth that the world needs to know. I like to teach. So it's the extroverted thinking in me is saying, show them. Whereas I think extroverted sensing is more like, give me. So yeah, I tend to want to think out loud. Like, I know a lot of times my ENFJ friends might say, I already know what you're going to say, Paul. And I'll say, well, let me say it anyway, because my extroverted thinking needs to externally process it. And now that I think about it, that's the main reason I do YouTube videos anyway, so that I can process it. In my brain, I'm like, I gotta make a video of this, or I'm just not going to be able to think about it properly. It's just going to be stewing inside my mind, and then that'll be really awful. Well, with that said, I should probably log off because I'm going to have a very packed day. So, do you have any last thoughts before I close the live stream? I can see that. ISFPs tend to need experiences where they're engaging their senses. But unlike the ESFP, where they kind of just dive right into it, ISFPs will like compare it with their introverted feeling to see if it fits with their values first. Whereas an ESFP might be like, shoot, I should have thought of my values first. That's why ESFPs are more likely to like invade someone's boundaries, like, you know, lay across someone's lap or like touch a person's face without asking them first. Whereas ISFPs would say, is it proper to be touching someone's face? I was going to say, I'm going to close the live stream pretty soon because I figure I should probably start winding down for a lot of stuff going on. And so, do you have any final thoughts that you wish to share before I close this down? Oh, and just when a second person joined. Bummer. Well, Mr. or Mrs. or Miss second person, if you have anything to say, you can always say make a future video on it, and then I will take that into consideration. Hello. If I'm not mistaken, you recently subscribed to me, unless I'm thinking of someone else. Alright, have a good one. I can stay on a little bit longer, but not too much, because I need to sleep eventually. What's up? Oh, and thanks for telling me about the ISFP, Charles. It was really, really rewarding. Alright, I will be right back. Gotta really wind down with some sleep medication. Well, when I say winding down, I typically don't mean I'm going to go to sleep right away. It usually means I'll like read an article online or some form of mental wear down to give me a chance to get my brain overworking. Oh, wait, you weren't here for the earlier stream. So I had said that basically for me, what helps me go to sleep is to overstimulate myself so that my brain gets tired of thinking. But I'm willing to stay up a little bit longer. Always was a night owl. Probably will be for the rest of my life. So, what kind of things do you enjoy watching in general? It doesn't have to be my stuff. Ah, typology. All right, bring it. What type are you, if you don't mind me asking? Oh, thank you very much. So I take it you like video games too? Because that's the main stuff I post about. I never considered this channel to be a Myers-Briggs expert site. It was always just, I like talking about Myers-Briggs, so I'll do it every now and then. But it seems like that's what's causing people to flock to this channel, which I hope isn't my undoing. For me personally, most of the YouTube videos I watch have to do with video games. I typically will sometimes watch some Myers-Briggs videos, but more often than not, I don't see enough ISTJs talking, and so as a result, I find them kind of hit or miss because I want to hear some familiarity. I want to hear someone say, "Ooh, ooh, ooh, yes, yes, I get that." Oh, I love RPGs. I'm very selective about the type. Late, I've been playing Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle on my Nintendo Switch, and it's a lot of fun. I also am a huge fan of Fire Emblem, and except for Shadow Dragon, that game was lousy. And the first two Paper Marios were amazing. And I guess The World Ends With You is kind of an RPG. Oh, I can't stand Final Fantasy because it's all random battles. I like the Theatrhythm games on the 3DS because they were rhythm games, but then they tried to incorporate RPG stuff, and it's just like, this is a rhythm game. I just want to play some music. Although I would get into Final Fantasy 16, I think it was, on the PS4. It like had you drive a car through what looked like an American wilderness. That looked amazing. I mean, Breath of the Wild is my favorite video game, so as a result, I like games that allow me to foster my explorative side. So that's why Super Mario Galaxy is my favorite Mario game, because it allows you to like freely roam around these big environments. Although I kind of wish they were bigger, because compared to Breath of the Wild, it's very, very diminutive. Small. Very small. So now I have a subscription to... Well, I mean, if they're willing to go to more of like an action RPG route, I might give it a try if they bring them back to Nintendo systems. As far as I know, the last Final Fantasy game on a Nintendo system was Final Fantasy Explorers for the 3DS. Yeah, it's okay. I get that a lot of people on my channel are not Native American, Native English speakers, so I try to show a little bit of patience. Then again, a lot of people are also intuitives, and they speak funny. Ha, 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 ha. No, don't worry. My best friend is an intuitive, and my best female friend is an intuitive, so I'm slowly getting used to the way they talk very roundabout and take a while to get to their points. So I have a subscription to GameFi now, and so as a result, I'm now able to rent Nintendo games that I would otherwise have stayed away from because I was like, I don't want to spend all this money on a game that's basically unchanged from a Wii U port or it looks stupid. So are there any Nintendo games that you think I should review? Oh, yeah. I'm like... The only time I'm not surrounded by intuitives is when I'm with my family, because everyone in my family, except possibly my younger sister, is an intuitive. My best friend, my best friend's brother, my best friend's father, my best female friend, one of my best male friends, pretty much everyone at my young adult group. It's the main reason why I don't really like going to parties, because pretty much everyone's an intuitive, and I'm just like, is there anyone who speaks plain English around here? Or at least plain broken English? Because, yeah, I know people that, are from Brazil or from Australia, and they talk really weirdly, too. And it's like, okay, this is definitely not a cultural thing. This is intuition, and I'm a dominant sensor. So if you don't mind, could you just say what you mean and mean what you say? Yeah, typing people's kind of an acquired art. You kind of have to know the functions before you know the letters. So, like, if you say, oh, I think that person's ENFP because they're outgoing, they seem to like possibilities, they seem to be emotional, and they seem to be easygoing. That could also apply to the INFJ or the ISTP. So, the functions are basically what the letters explain what the functions are. It's kind of a complicated process. But typically speaking, let me type this out. Maybe it would be easier than me just saying it. Give me a couple of seconds. I hope you're able to read all that as I'm typing it. Because that's the basic way to start, is knowing your dominant function will help you know your inferior. And another thing you can do is, if you know your dominant introverted feeling, then the inverse function that I typed will be an extroverted one. So, for example, you could be an INFP. That means you have introverted feeling. So then, therefore, you would have extroverted thinking as your last function. So, continuing. there are too many web links. I can give you a basic link that lists like what each function does depending on how it is in your function stack. Then apart from that, you might just have to study the functions themselves. Like you might just have to look up introverted feeling or extroverted sensing, whatever you think you have. So I'm looking that up right now. Okay, so the site is loading, and then I'll be able to send the link right after that. All right, loaded. It's just scrolling very slowly, probably because I'm on a live slow when you're on a live stream. All righty. Oh yeah, so did I. That should give you a beginner's look into the functions and how they manifest based on the function stack. Like, for example, my opposite type, the ENFP, they have the same functions as me, but they're in reverse order. So whereas my dominant function is introverted sensing, meaning that for me, like, everything is a reel of familiar memories and facts, for them, their introverted sensing manifests as a very poor recollection of facts and data. Although occasionally they may use it to get mild sentimental streaks. But like I said, mild. They don't make it a huge priority like I do. No problem. Well, with that, my sleep medicine is starting to kick in, so I think I'm going to head out for the time being, unless you want to ask one last question or statement, if that's okay with you. You have a good night, too. Thanks a lot for joining the live stream. And keep the suggestions coming. And if anyone watches this after I leave the live stream, know that I love, yep, you too. Know that I love viewer feedback, positive or negative, as long as it's done constructively and adult-like. So until the next time, keep the faith, stay epic, God bless, and read up on your functions. Bye. Any day now.